If you, like me, are a massive Zelda fan and love playing pretty much every game in the franchise and watch a ton of Zelda content on YouTube, then I'm sure at some point you've at least heard of the animated Zelda TV series from the 80s. If you somehow haven't, then you are in for a doozy. I first properly came across the show when I saw this video pop up on my homepage, and I decided to give it a watch. And oh my gosh, was this show bad. And not bad like the CDI games, those are on a whole other level. But bad as in rushed 80s show bad. I watched this video like a year or two ago and pretty much forgot everything about it, and then I randomly remembered it recently, and I came up with the idea to watch it myself and rank each episode from worst to best. Thankfully there are only 13 episodes, so I figured this would be a nice quick video. Going through the show is something else. When you think of what a Zelda TV series would be, I am willing to bet that this is not that. It screams Saturday morning cartoon. And while it's not trash, it certainly isn't good. So here we go. Let's begin the ranking of each episode of the Zelda animated TV series. But first, let's talk about the intro for the show. Well, first it gives us the intro for the Super Mario Bros. Super Show, which deserves a video on its own. But the intro for the Zelda show starts off with a rendition of the Zelda main theme, and we get some exposition on what the general plot is. So in this take on the Zelda lore, there are only two pieces of the Triforce, the Triforce of Wisdom and the Triforce of Power. And there's no Triforce of Courage, weirdly enough. Guess they decided to not include any lore from Zelda 2. But anyway, it seems that Zelda has hired Link, who we learn was once an adventurer and hero, to protect the Triforce of Wisdom from Ganon, who has the Triforce of Power. Gosh, I'm going to be saying Triforce a lot in this video, aren't I? Anyway, at the end of the intro, we get our first look at one of the most iconic lines in the whole Zelda franchise.
Nice job, hero!
Hey, excuse me, princess!
So yeah, we get the gist of what is going on here, and with that out of the way, let's move on to what I consider to be the worst episode in the series. Now you may be wondering, what could possibly be the worst episode in the series? Well, it's quite simple really. The most boring one. Episode 2, Cold Spells. Now there's nothing inherently wrong with this episode, I just was bored the whole way through. Nothing interesting really happens. It starts with a common theme throughout each episode, and that is Link hitting on Zelda. He does this every single time and it always fails. Anyway, Zelda puts Link to work by doing some spring cleaning around the castle. But Link just simply doesn't want to. So comes up with the genius idea of pretending to be sick in order to get out of work. Oh yeah, I forgot to introduce Sprite. Basically, Sprite is a fairy, much like Navi from Ocarina of Time. Annoying and always ruining things. She's pretty much the reason why Link never gets to kiss Zelda, because she has a crush on him. I don't know how that would work, which thankfully Link points out himself. She's a lot like Tinkerbell from Peter Pan, which makes sense since Link was designed after Peter Pan. But yeah, that's Sprite. So in this episode, she falls for Link's fake cold and tells him to stop working and go to bed to rest. Meanwhile, Zelda is in Link's room, where she complains about how messy and stinky it is, and we also learn that the Triforce can speak? As far as I know, this is the only iteration of the Triforce speaking directly. It's just bizarre to say the least. Anyway, the Triforce tells Zelda basically that being messy doesn't make one a bad hero. Zelda cannot stand the stench though and opens a window to let in some fresh air, but one of Ganon's minions, a weird bird thing whose name I cannot recall nor do I care to remember, but Zelda just stuffs his head into the pile of stinky clothes and it flies off in a daze. Tired from this encounter, Zelda lies down on Link's bed and yet another infamous scene commences.
Oh boy, smooching time! Ah! Oof!
Zelda scolds Link for not working, but Sprite tries to defend him about his sickness, which Link obviously doesn't believe but lets Link rest anyway. Ganon learns from his bird that everyone is cleaning at the castle and he comes up with a plan. While we're on the topic of Ganon, let's talk about his evil jar, quote unquote. Basically, it's a big glass jar where all the monsters who die go to. Basically, it's like Tartarus. When the monsters die, they reappear in the jar and are then summoned by Ganon when he needs them. It sure is an interesting concept, but I don't have anything too crazy to say about it. It's just kind of there for reasons. And while I'm still talking about Ganon, I need to point out something that I noticed throughout the series. The series starts out with him just wanting the Triforce of Wisdom to rule Hyrule, but as the series goes on, his plans eventually become more of wanting to marry Zelda. It still involves the Triforce because that means that he'll gain it, but I don't even want to begin to think of the implications of all that. I personally don't like how his plans slowly evolved into this, but I guess it could be worse. So yeah, back to the episode. Ganon is busy scouting the castle for a distraction so he can go steal the Triforce, and notices Sprite cleaning a carpet and has an idea. An old lady appears selling oranges, and Sprite decides to get one and take it to Link to make him feel better. And just as he takes one, Ganon casts a spell on her, and fills her with a bunch of energy, and she zooms off to give Link the orange. With the orange delivered and Link obviously not going to eat it, Zelda tells Sprite to clean up Zelda's room, and she starts using her fairy magic to get it done, but all the energy inside her from Ganon's spell made her magic more powerful, and suddenly all of the objects begin attacking her and making a mess. Link and Zelda hear her screams and go to save her, but the room has been flooded and washes them away. They suspect Ganon is up to something, so Link gives her some weapons to help defend herself, and they go to investigate. Meanwhile, Ganon sneaks into Link's room to take the Triforce, which brings me to my next issue of the series. Why on earth is the Triforce just left out in the open in his room? Why don't they just keep it in some sort of magic vault that can keep Ganon out? I'm pretty sure they have the ability to do that, but I get it, that would make the show boring, so oh well. Link and Zelda take down the objects attacking them, and one thing I really like about the series is its use of the sound effects from the original Zelda game. When this show was created, there were like only 2 games to go off of, that being The Legend of Zelda and The Adventure of Link. So I thought it was pretty neat whenever they pulled out their weapons and it would play the sound effect from the game, as well as whenever picking up an item or a rupee, or when Link uses a sword to fire a beam.
Guys, it's been a blast, but you're going home!
And while we're talking about that, I don't understand why Link never actually uses his sword. Well, he does, but all he does is fire beams from it, like from the original game. It's neat, but it's the only attack he does. He never actually has any sword fights, which is a real shame because it would have been so much cooler. At this point, Link has more of a gun than a sword. So anyway, they realize after the battle that Ganon must have gone for the Triforce and rushed to Link's room to find it missing. So they give chase to Ganon on horseback and follow him to the underworld. However, Link and Zelda fall into a trap and are stuck inside a big magic jar which they can't break out of. And Ganon unleashed Goma to kill them. Sprite then appears, and she tries to save them by using her magic since it's still powerful and it hurts Goma, which flings Link out of the prison. An epic battle ensues, and they manage to beat Ganon, who brings the ceiling down on them. Zelda grabs the Triforce of Wisdom and tries to grab the Triforce of Power as well, but obviously we can't have that for plot's sake. So Link has to yank her away, telling her that there's no time, when they clearly did have plenty of time, and they escape the wreckage. And with that, Zelda forces them to clean up her room again, and the episode ends. All in all, it wasn't terrible, but I was mainly just bored the whole way through. I barely remembered what happened before rewatching for the script, and nothing all that interesting really happened. So that is why I personally put this in last place. And now we move on to number 12 of this ranking. This episode starts out with Link sneaking through the castle, holding a strange long object. He's trying to sneak out of the castle, but is stopped by Zelda at the exit. Turns out Link was trying to sneak off to go fishing instead of cleaning. If you couldn't tell, this episode follows quite a similar plot to the previous one, and that pretty much explains why these two are at the bottom of the list. They're just boring. This one gets a slight edge over the other because it's got something a bit more interesting at least. So Link is busy cleaning up around the castle when he hears a strange noise coming from behind him. He falls down the ladder after spilling some, well, I don't know what it is, I guess it's water? Anyway, he slips on it and falls down the ladder, and that's when a mysterious robotic thing made up of different items shows up, hits a wall and collapses into pieces. Then who I think is like some sort of wizard or janitor or wizard janitor follows after it. His name is Doof, and he created that robot thing to be his assistant to help with the chores. Link tells him to not give up though, because he just wants more excuses to not work, and tells him to give it another try. It works and proceeds to use a mop as a pogo stick, and making a mess. They give chase to it, but only for a group of moblins to appear from the ground behind them by lifting up a towel. Only to again get trampled by the robot thing. Then it comes around to them again once they emerge from the hole and gets destroyed in the process. Link fights the moblins and they manage to trap him in a net, so Doof tries to help him by reconstructing the robot again, and it holds down one of them while Link escapes. The other one uses a boomerang and hits the robot leg while Link kills him, but only for it to collapse on him, knocking him unconscious for a bit. He wakes up to find Zelda scolding him for sleeping. Link tries to explain himself by stating that a group of moblins attacked, but Zelda just doesn't believe him because there aren't any moblins around. And this is why this episode also sucks. Because of course there aren't any moblins. Link killed them all. When you kill a monster, they vanish into thin air and not leave any traces behind. So I guess Zelda just conveniently forgot that for the plot's sake. And we'll soon see why she conveniently forgot about this little detail. Zelda sends him back to work, and Link comes up with the idea to have some fake moblins attack so that he can get out of doing chores, but Zelda overhears his plan. Back at Ganon's place, he is scheming to get a hold of Zelda so that he can place this necklace on her, and she'll do anything he says. Which, first of all, just a little bit creepy, and second of all, I really don't like how his plans eventually just became marry the princess. Like, it just sucks and I hate everything about it. He's trying too hard to be like Bowser. Anyway, back at the castle, Link and Zelda are busy doing chores, both waiting for the fake moblins to show up, only for a whole bunch of real moblins to burst through the door and kidnap Zelda. Zelda, thinking that this is just the fake moblins, just let it happen. Link is confused as to why they just took her, and then Doof rocks up holding a fake one in his hands. Link realizes that those were the real ones, and gives chase. Okay, one cool thing about this episode that really gave it the edge over the last one was the fact that Link bounces off of a bomb explosion with a shield. This series predicted Tears of the Kingdom, and you cannot change my mind. So anyways, Link catches up to them by using this technique, follows them down into the underworld after taking out a few. However, by the time Link gets there, Ganon has already placed the necklace on Zelda, and the ceremony has already begun, and she refuses to leave with him. So Ganon summons a Gleeok to kill Link, and of course Link defeats it by having them collide with Ganon. They escape, and they get the necklace off of her, and of course Link wants a kiss, and of course Link gets rejected. That's when the fake moblin of Doof shows up and scares Zelda, and that's pretty much where the episode ends. So yeah, pretty much the only reason I preferred this over the previous one was because of the shield bomb, but other than that I just pretty much am with it. Man, I sure can't wait to move on to some actually enjoyable episodes later. But for now, we have to go through with the slop. This episode starts off with Link and Zelda going on a picnic to this new place he discovered that reminds me a lot of ancient Greek architecture. And as usual, Link tries to get Zelda to kiss him. But this time, I guess Zelda's feeling a bit romantic due to the scenery, and leaps on him, and as they're about to begin their makeout session, the ground begins to rumble and open up and a bunch of weird arachnid thingies pop up. I honestly don't even know what these things are called. They call them spiders, so I guess they're just big spiders. Anyway, long story short, Link and Zelda defeat them, although Zelda did almost die by having her head crushed by the closing ground, so that was pretty cool, I guess. And just as they're about to kiss yet again, the statue of Cupid in the center begins to rumble as well, and sinks down into the ground. Obviously, they think that this is Ganon. Obviously. So Zelda gets fed up and demands that they go down and face him yet again. So, as it turns out, Ganon got his hands on a magic magnet that brings anything you point at it to you. A Wolfos, I'm pretty sure that's what they're called, was using it under Ganon's instructions to bring Link and Zelda to them, but got the Cupid statue instead. Okay, so now here's the main issue of this episode. All was fine, until this next scene. For some bizarre reason, Link and Zelda decided to bring the Triforce of Wisdom with them on their raid of the underworld. And after the Triforce gives them some cryptic clue as to how to stop the magnet, which involves a magic bracelet, the castle begins to sink beneath the ground, meaning that Ganon is bringing it to him. So, what's the main issue, you ask? Well, why the hell are Link and Zelda bringing the Triforce? They never do this, and it just brings it straight to Ganon. Oh right, sorry, I forgot. The writers needed to have something interesting happen in this episode. So they just came up with a reason that just makes no sense in order for Ganon to not get the Triforce instantly. It all makes sense now. This is up there with Zelda forgetting Moblins vanish after dying. Honestly, it's just lazy writing. Oh yeah, and Link reaches for the tip of the castle as it vanishes beneath the ground. What was he hoping to accomplish here? Was he gonna pull it up or something? Okay, let's move on. So now Ganon has the castle in the underworld, and Zelda's dad, the king, and Sprite are trapped in it along with all the townsfolk, which we just never happen to see in this episode. And while we're on the topic of Zelda's dad, I never mentioned him till now. Well, because the previous episodes we talked about never featured him. Well, he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, to say the least. Don't get me wrong, he's one of the most humorous characters in the show, mostly due to the fact that he's the most pure-hearted soul on the goddess's green earth. Like, you're telling me this guy did it and had a daughter? Man doesn't even seem like he knows the concept of it. He's like a 7-year-old trapped in an old man's body. He's honestly a joy to watch sometimes, but he doesn't really do much in this episode. He just hides with Sprite while Ganon rampages through the castle angrily looking for the Triforce. Oh yeah, I guess Ganon somehow knew that Link and Zelda wouldn't be in the castle because he just barges in with like no defense or anything. But if you did know, then how did he not know that the Triforce would be with them? Oh wait, sorry, I forgot again. Bad writing. So Zelda and Link infiltrate the underworld and gain the magic bracelet the Triforce mentioned along the way while fighting a Darknut. So now they take on Ganon, and Zelda tries to kidnap the Triforce of Power. However, Link gets chained up, and Zelda saves him with the Triforce's power, only for Ganon to use the power of his own to lure it in. So then Link uses the bracelet to break through and toss Ganon into the magnet, which ends up sending the castle back to the surface. Zelda quickly tries to nab the Triforce of Power again, but once again Link says there's no time and takes them back to the rising castle. The magnet overloads and blows up, and all's well. As usual though, Link wants a kiss, but the king is with them and thinks that Link wants a kiss from him. So he kisses him on the cheek, much to the disgust of Link, and the episode ends. All in all, better than the previous 2 episodes, as it actually entertained me a bit better, but it had some pretty bad writing decisions that ultimately hold it back. I like the concept of the magnet, but it could have been done better and far more creatively. This episode begins on a hot day, and Zelda and the king are enjoying the pool while Link is up in his room guarding the Triforce. While doing so, the king discusses how wonderful it will be once his water park for the kingdom to have a place to cool off is finished being built. And well, I don't know about you, but I don't particularly think a water park made entirely out of bricks is going to be comfortable. I know this is set in a medieval fantasy world, but I would personally not be riding down those water slides. Anyway, at the park, water begins spilling everywhere and water creatures begin attacking all the workers and chase them away. They report to the king, and an adult joke that flew over my head on the first viewing suddenly made sense during my second. I don't know if this was intentional, but the guy who reported stated that he was all wet from the attack, and Zelda says,
Speaking of all wet, where's our local hero? He should be hearing this.
If you get it, then I'm sorry, but if you don't, then I envy you. Anyway, Link shows up, ready for the mission, and Zelda just decides to brutally roast the guy.
You called for a hero, princess?
Yes, but I guess you'll have to do.
So Link and Zelda head to investigate the water park, and soon after, one of the monsters show up. Link zaps it, and they get drenched, and then get washed away after climbing into one of those empty slides and land up in a massive pool. A snake coils around Zelda's legs and drags her to the bottom, then electrocutes Link after getting zapped by him. Zelda then kills it with a crossbow. They try to get out, but 2 massive crabs grab them, so they zap each other's crabs to escape. And as usual, Link tries to get a kiss out of this, but Zelda states that she hates wet kisses. This may be insignificant, which it is, but keep this in mind for later. So they escape the pool, and the king shows up, and he doesn't believe that there are any kind of monsters, only to get grabbed by a massive tentacle and pulled into the pool and vanishes. So with the king gone, and still no closer to solving the mystery, they ask the Triforce of Wisdom, which just tells them to search the pool, and they decide to bring the Triforce along, but at least this time Zelda says she has a feeling they'll need it. They return to the pool, and Zelda creates magic air bubbles around their heads to breathe, and they dive in. They reach a drain, and they try to get through the grate, but then a massive fish shows up and smashes through it on the other side, which then grabs the Triforce and drags Zelda along with it, where it leads them to this big watery area. Zelda creates a wall of ice, which the fish swims into, gets stuck, and Link zaps it. Link of course wants another kiss, and Zelda accepts for once. He gets all excited and completely forgets they have helmets, which of course Zelda didn't. They surface and wound up in a small pond with a cave nearby. Suddenly the water monsters appear again, which they destroy only for more to keep appearing from lasers being shot from the trees. Zelda notices the lasers and discovers fairies in the trees, which are the cause of the water monsters. It turns out they're at the fairy spring, where all the fairies live, including Sprite's dad, the king of the fairies. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, but Sprite went off somewhere on some sort of leave. I don't really remember, it's not really important. So yeah, the fairies were the cause of the water monsters, because the water park was using the pond for its water, and fairies attacked it out of confusion. The king had explained it all to the fairy king, and now they're using a different source for its water, and all is well. And for once, Zelda actually does accept a kiss, even though she said she hated wet kisses earlier. See, I told you it would matter later. However, as usual, Link never gets a kiss, because Sprite shows up out of nowhere, and stops him with a laser, and the episode ends. Overall, it was more enjoyable than the previous ones, but it was also lacking a bit for me. It also felt shorter than all the others, despite them all being the same length of around 14 minutes. But yeah, it was decent, but definitely far from my favorite. Well, I guess that's obvious judging by its placement. Anyway, moving on. Well, we've made it to the first episode. And to be completely honest, it didn't really get me excited for the show, which is what a first episode is supposed to do. It's meant to give you a taste of what the rest of the show is supposed to be, and I guess it did that to an extent. But when I watched this episode, all I could think at the end was, this is what I have to sit through for who knows how long. So let's just get it over and done with and talk about this episode. It begins on a normal sunny day, and Link wakes up scolding the privileges he has. A nice bed, roof over his head. Nah, he'd rather go sleep in mud and rain. He makes his way over to a window, and a tower shifts open behind him. He opens the window and notices Zelda on her balcony in a gown, and instantly catcalls her.
Looking good, princess! Especially from this angle!
As an introduction to our main character, it's terrible. Unless the point was to make us hate Link, in which case they succeeded. So Sprite shows up with Zelda's robe to cover her up, and they head back inside. Link then gets jumped by a group of moblins who appeared from a tower they moved, and fight ensues. And to no surprise, he kicks their butts and the Triforces are protected. I guess it was kinda nice of the writers to at least give us a fight to introduce us to Link's fighting skills, so it wasn't all bad. After the fight, Zelda shows up at his door, and of course Link thinks he's about to get a kiss as a reward for being a hero. This is of course not the case, and she slaps him for catcalling her earlier. Then she scolds him for not cleaning his room, and Link tells her he had just fought off a group of moblins, obviously exaggerating the story, I guess in order to guilt trip her for hitting him. Guess it works for like 3 seconds, she apologizes, and we move on. She orders Link to stay in the room all day to guard the Triforce because she's suspicious of Ganon at the moment. She explains that she needs to get ready for the amateur magician contest and just leaves him to do his thing. And now we move on to our first introduction to Ganon. Well, not you, the viewer who has probably never seen the show before, but to the people who decided to watch this show. He instantly zaps the moblins who failed him inside the monster jar for failing their mission. And we never get an explanation of the jar here for some reason, so we're just kinda left to figure out what's going on with it. So that's another point bumped down, not that I'm keeping score or anything. Ganon gets upset and decides that he's just gotta go get the Triforce himself, and plans to disguise himself to enter the magician contest and sneak into the castle. And I'm pretty sure this is the only instant we hear the Triforce of Power actually speak in the whole show.
But you're no amateur. You're a pro.
Anyway, Ganon sets off to the castle disguised as just an ordinary wizard, with definitely not suspicious looking disguised Stelfos to carry him. So Zelda is busy with the magicians, witnessing all the spells they can do, and for some reason the king isn't here. The one she is currently viewing is someone who uses a spell to grow their plants real fast, but then the tomato explodes and splashes Zelda with tomato sauce. A menacing laugh is heard and Zelda demands to know who it is, and Ganon just says that his name is not important. First red flag. Then he explains that he wants to enter the contest and creates a bird to prove he's an amateur magician, which Zelda accepts and tells him to wait his turn. Then when no one is noticing him, he turns the bird into a keys and sends it off into Link's room to scout it out, where he just finds Link talking to Sprite. They're talking about how to get Zelda to fall for Link, but because Sprite has a thing for Link, she doesn't want to help and tries to convince him that he should stick with her. And thankfully, Link points out that she's only 3 inches high, which is 7.62 centimeters for all us non-Americans. And Sprite belittles him for not liking short girls. So the Keys reports back to Ganon and tells him the news. So Ganon turns a lizard a magician had created into a massive dragon creature, which begins attacking Zelda. Link, hearing her cries, immediately jumps out of the window to help her, and begins fighting off the beast and defeats it using his shield and deflecting his beams off of a plate that Zelda tossed. And I just gotta say that the sound effects from the original game were used well here.
Ha! Not bad, eh?
So the lizard turns back to normal, and of course Zelda scolds him for not guarding the Triforce. And of course, now Ganon has gotten a hold of it. And the Triforce basically tells him, "Lol, you gonna die." So now it's Ganon's turn to jump out of a window, and runs off in his Stealthos vehicle. Zelda has the idea to use the powers of the magician who grew the tomato really big to make a massive beanstalk of sorts to fling them through the air towards Ganon, and have a bit of rough landing. They end up ahead of Ganon, and Link zaps one of the Stealthos, destabilizing him. And Link and Zelda begin to face off against an army of them, and Link has the idea to strap each other together so they can fight on both sides. Oh yeah, Link gave Zelda a bow he picked up from the Moblins at the beginning. To no one's surprise, they defeat the Stealthos, and Zelda fires at Ganon, which causes him to drop the Triforce. He orders the last Stealthos to toss a bomb at them, but Link deflects the bomb with his sword and zaps it. Ganon thinks he's won as he grabs the Triforce and makes a run for the underworld entrance that opened up, but as he gets inside, Link knocks the bomb he deflected earlier into the entrance and blows him up, which somehow didn't break the Triforce, which we will get into in a later episode, and Ganon just dies. Like, seriously, he ends up in the monster jar. So I guess he can't die, much like all the other monsters. He just materializes in the jar after being killed. Well then I guess the fight against him is just never ending, and they never bring up this factor, ever. So as usual, Link wants a kiss, and he thinks that he's going to be able to get one by telling Zelda that he'll only let them both out of the belt once he gets it. And the creep persona is still maintained. Zelda tells him beforehand that he better not make a habit of this, which he promises not to while crossing his fingers, foreshadowing the entire show. And just as he's about to get one, Sprite interrupts yet again, and the episode ends, and all wills that ends well. So my main problem with the episode is how poorly it is at a first episode. If it was placed anywhere else in the series, it would have been much better. Well, not really, actually. But one thing I will give it, which is both a pro and a con, is how well it makes you not like Link. Having an unlikable protagonist can be done very well sometimes, but not when he's a creep who's basically just trying to get into Zelda's pants the whole time. So I'm not a big fan of that. I really wish they had done something else with his character. But what's done is done, and now all we can do is move on to the next episode. Now this episode is a bit of an interesting one, and you'll see why in a second. It begins on a normal night after a big meal, with Link and the King in the night on a balcony. Well, the King is. Link is creepily watching Zelda again. Meanwhile, Ganon has gotten his hands on a unicorn, and is now on his way to the castle, where Link is about to swing in through Zelda's window, and an interaction between him and the King that would never happen in the real world commences.
I was, just gonna swing in through your daughter's window and try to get her to kiss me.
Not a chance.
No?
No. You'll need to take flowers.
Zelda loves the flowers, and actually is about to give him a kiss, but that's when the King starts getting kidnapped and Link rushes over to help him with a makeshift diving board.
Daddy!
This always happens.
But he's too late and the King has been caught. And Ganon rides off into the sky, but Link manages to grab onto the unicorn's tail but gets zapped off.
I say, that wasn't nice at all.
But he then grabs onto one of those weird demon things that I don't know the name of, so he doesn't fall. But then Ganon zaps them and he continues to fall.
Really? That was quite impolite.
Silence, prisoner!
So Ganon gets away and Zelda catches Link's fall with a carriage of hail. They then plot to infiltrate the underworld, and Zelda wonders where Ganon would have gotten the unicorn. Meanwhile, Ganon puts the King in a circular room and tells him that Link and Zelda better give him the Triforce in 1 hour or he will fall down a bottomless pit forever, and the center of the room begins to open up slowly. So Link and Zelda make their way through the underworld and fight their way through some monsters, but then a mysterious figure appears and helps them out. They're dressed like a ninja, and after defeating the monsters they begin attacking Link as well. They think it's a monster at first, but Link zaps it and it doesn't vanish, and then they realize it's a person. They grab a hold of them and remove their mask to see that it's a woman. Obviously, Link takes a liking to her, and they try to communicate with her, but she seems to be kinda, well, I would say foreign language, but I don't know how to explain it. I'll just show you.
We won't hurt you.
I know that it will begin to me.
She doesn't speak our language.
She seems to speak how you would imagine an alien speaking in a show from this era. But I don't understand why they didn't just have her speak Japanese, seeing that she's clearly a Japanese woman. But I guess they just didn't want to bother with that, so they made her speak this weird, bizarre alien language. It's just weird to me that they made this decision. Well, anyway, Zelda tries to communicate with her and eventually figures out that her name is Zing or Sing. I don't know, but she had her unicorn stolen from her by Ganon, and that's why she's here. So they continue into the underworld with her, and we get our first glimpse at Lionel's in the show. The first of 2 times. Don't know why, that's just how it is. And also, wow, it's a miracle to see Link actually using his sword as a sword for once. After they're defeated, one of them drops a magic whistle, which is actually technically a recorder, like from the original game, but it's called a whistle here, and Link keeps it with them for later. They reach where the unicorn is being kept and rescue it from some monsters. And conveniently, a monster shows up with a bomb, and Zelda throws a boomerang at it, which makes it drop the bomb and causes a hole to form, which reveals the king. Wow, talk about plot armor. Link gets into a battle with Ganon though, but then Zelda manages to get rid of him with another boomerang toss, but then the king falls down into the hole, only to be rescued by Zing and her unicorn. So Link uses the magic whistle to cause strong wind to carry them all home. And with that, Zing flies home and all is well yet again. So this was just a weird episode. Not bad by all means, but definitely weird. And that's all due to Zing's appearance in it. Like, why did they choose to add her? Since she really didn't need to be there. They didn't need to have her speak a weird language, and they could have just had her speak a proper language. Maybe they just don't want Japan to be canon in the Zelda universe. But all in all, it was a pretty big improvement, and I actually kinda enjoyed it this time around. Anyway, let's move on. We still got 7 more episodes to go through. Yay. Okay, I just gotta go through this one extremely quickly because pretty much nothing of interest happens at all. As a final episode, it really doesn't have much going for it. Well, I did enjoy it a decent bit, it's just kinda eh. So I'll just summarize it for you. Even more than I was before. Basically, Ganon's minions revolt against Ganon and trap him while they take over Hyrule Castle themselves, but ultimately fail. And Link and Zelda accidentally break Ganon free, and all the monsters somehow manage to kill themselves while attacking because they're not very coordinated without Ganon, and they all fall under his control in the end, and that's it. I've could have gone into a bit more detail about it, but I didn't feel like wasting my time on it. Oh yeah, and this is the second time Lionel's appeared in the series. Just thought I'd mention that. Anyway, now we can actually move on.
That lazy Link. He said he'd go riding with me this morning and he's still asleep.
This episode starts off rather strange. Zelda is riding through the woods and complaining about how Link said he would go riding with her but he's still asleep. And then she stumbles upon a woman being attacked by a Gleeok. However, we learn that this woman is in fact pretending to be attacked and the Gleeok is helping her. And then we see Zelda rushing towards them. They complain that they wanted Link and now they have to improvise. But Zelda attacks them with fruits and the woman starts complaining that beautiful maidens aren't supposed to be helped by other beautiful maidens. And that's when Link finally arrives. But the Gleeok comments on how Ganon's plan is working perfectly. And to no surprise, Link absolutely destroys them with a bit of help from Zelda at the end. Link introduces himself to the woman, and she asks that she gives him a kiss to show her gratitude. But once they do, Link transforms into a humanoid frog and the woman is revealed to be a Gibdo, and it begins laughing about how Ganon's plan worked perfectly. Link tries to reach for his sword but realizes that his hands are all weird and his voice sounds like he's constantly got his nose blocked.
Huh? My hands! They're all weird!
So Zelda manages to defeat the Gibdo by unraveling it, and Link goes to a pond to see that he has been transformed, and Zelda gives him some comfort while Ganon watches from the shadows. He attacks them, and Zelda gets captured by an Octorok, and Ganon leaves behind some spiders to finish with the unconscious Link, but he just eats them up after he wakes up, and is disgusted after realizing what he did. Link returns to the castle and scares Sprite, but then the Triforce gives him a cryptic message about never-ending wall and the Witch of Walls. So Link and Sprite make their way to the wall, and then a witch appears from the wall. Link asks her if she can help him, and she tells him that he can only be cured if a princess kisses him, which Link is not too pleased about, seeing that Zelda wouldn't even kiss him without being a frog. They head down to the underworld to rescue Zelda. However, when they get in, Ganon hears them and goes looking for them, leaving Zelda unattended, and Link manages to rescue her, and he informs her that only her kiss can save him. Zelda actually agrees, surprisingly, because it's the only way. But of course, Ganon makes his way back and attacks at that moment, knocking Link to the ground unconscious, and Sprite gives him a kiss, which manages to bring him back to his original self. He then manages to gain his strength and attacks Ganon, causing him to fall through the ground, and they escape. On their way back to the castle, Link questions why Sprite's kiss cured him, and it's revealed that Sprite was a princess this whole time, because her father is the king of the fairies. And right as Zelda is about to kiss him yet again, he goes and ruins it by eating a fly, as a result of his frog instincts remaining in him, and Zelda walks off disgusted, and the episode ends. I actually found it to be quite enjoyable, not gonna lie. There were some pretty funny moments, and the beginning sequence of the Gibdo and the Gliok is actually pretty good. I'd say this is where the episodes finally start bordering good quality, and I'm glad because I'm getting sick of the boring ones. So let's not waste any more time and continue. This episode begins with Link riding alone this time, picking a flower's petals while asking whether Zelda loves him or not, and of course ended with saying not. He then encounters some bandits stealing from a traveling merchant, and Link defeats each of them, and the merchant repays him by offering him a special sword that is supposedly better than his current one. So Link gives it up after being convinced that it will make him irresistible to ladies, especially princesses. And right on cue, Zelda calls for Link's help, and Link rushes off with his new sword, leaving his old one behind. However, once he's gone, it's revealed that the bandits were in fact hired by the merchant to trick Link into giving up his sword, and we learn that Link was in fact scammed out of his sword. Unsurprisingly. Come on, you're telling me a man that looks like this isn't scamming you? Only Link would fall for that. Anyway, Link races over to save Zelda from some monsters, but when he tries to deflect a laser, the sword snaps in half and is wounded in the foot, and he realizes that he was robbed. Ganon then appears and kidnaps them, because I guess he somehow knew that Link was unarmed. Classic Zelda TV show. So with Link and Zelda captured, Ganon of course wants to use them to take over the kingdom, and that's when the merchant, I honestly forgot his name and I don't care to look it up again, but he appears before Ganon and offers Ganon Link's sword in exchange for 1,000 rupees. And of course, Ganon says absolutely not and catches him as well. I mean, who would really blame him? 1,000 rupees is way too overpriced. With Link's sword, he throws them all into a cage with Gohma, which seems counterintuitive because he wants to exchange Zelda for Hyrule with the king, so killing her just ruins his plans. But what else do I expect at this point? So Link and Zelda try to find weapons they can use against Gohma, and turn up with a rope and a boomerang, and they get lockpicks from... alright, I'll go back and find his name. So they get lockpicks from Sleaze Nose and order him to unlock the cage while they distract Gohma. Eventually, their plans wound up with Gohma getting trapped in the rope. Sleaze Nose manages to open the cage so they all escape and make it back to Hyrule Castle. They consult the Triforce of Wisdom, who tells them to use natural resources to fight Ganon, like bugs and animals. So they get out and gather a bunch of bee nests and termites to use against him. So once everything is set up, Ganon rocks up and Sleaze Nose goes up to him, offering him a gift after explaining that he managed to escape. And I guess Ganon is just too busy thinking about his present and doesn't consider the fact that Zelda and Link probably escaped as well. Ganon takes the gift after being told that it is the Triforce of Wisdom, but once he opens it, he gets attacked by bees, and Link uses the opportunity to swing in and take his sword back. Zelda then launches more bees at him, and he runs off in terror, and all is well that ends well for once. And for once, Zelda asks Link for a kiss during her celebration, but Link makes a bad bee joke and Zelda walks off complaining about how she hates bad puns. Link then realized, however, that Sleaze Nose was missing and probably went to go take the Triforce of Wisdom, so they hurry back and it's gone. Except Zelda hid the Triforce in Link's pile of dirty clothes, and it turned out that Sprite placed a spell on the termite hill they got and made it look like the Triforce, and he runs off in pain just as Ganon did. Honestly, despite its many story flaws, it had a weirdly good time with it. It had an extremely similar plot to the previous episode, but I enjoyed it more somehow. Don't know why, I just did. So now let's move on to... This episode starts off with, well, a white knight riding on his horse to a town in Hyrule. We have no idea who he is or why he's here, but there he is. And we then see our protagonists in the same town, but for reasons we aren't told. And Zelda is busy giving herself a makeover with her magic that she never uses in any other situation, of course. And at that moment, the ground opens up and a bunch of monsters march outwards to attack, and Link meets them head on. And after many troubles, Link goes for a rupee, but then they manage to capture him and toss him away. Then an Octorok and Tinsu try going for the rupee and fight over it, but Link appears again, claiming that the rupee is his, and gets towed by an Octorok after defeating the Tinsuit, and that's when they run into the White Knight, who takes out the Octorok like it's nothing. The knight approaches them, asking if the princess is Zelda, and introduces himself as Prince Facade. Well, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. He claims to be from the Kingdom of Arcadia, which I guess is canon in Zelda lore now. He flirts with Zelda, and she's absolutely smitten by him, which obviously disgusts Link. She introduces Link, and doesn't even get friend-zoned. My boy here got acquaintance-zoned. And she even called him Stink. Link, I think that's a sign, pal. Anyway, Link corrects her and sarcastically tries to shake Facade's hand, but Facade takes one look at Link's dirty hands and doesn't take it.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
Facade offers Zelda a ride back to the castle, which Zelda obviously accepts, and leaves Link behind in the dust. But just as Link was about to finally get the rupee from before, Facade swoops in and takes it for himself. If you didn't already dislike this Facade guy, I bet you do now. Meanwhile, in the underworld, Ganon learns that Facade has come to Hyrule, and since he's met with him before, he knows his weakness, and comes up with a scheme. See, Facade doesn't like getting dirty, hence the reason he didn't shake Link's hand, and wouldn't do it even to save a princess. And back at the castle, Facade, Zelda, and the king are all having a hangout of sorts, and Zelda just keeps complimenting Facade while disrespecting Link. And she gets so googly eyes for the prince that she doesn't even remember who Link is when the king asks where he is. Speaking of Link, he's busy taking a bath in his room, and Sprite intrudes on him, which notably surprises Link. And she even makes this comment, which sums up Sprite really.
I know. You look cute. Need your back scrubbed?
No!
Meanwhile, Facade is busy gloating about how he fought Ganon, and just then Link rocks up in the most ridiculous outfit, trying to seem like a prince to get Zelda to swoon over him over Facade. But instead, they all just laugh at him when he falls over and he runs out slamming the door. Link gets frustrated, but I mean, he did look very goofy. So Link, fed up with this whole thing, decides to leave the castle, saying that if Zelda wants the Triforce protected, then Facade can do it. And just like that, he hops out the window and onto his horse, who we learn is named Catherine, and they leave. Ganon sees this, however, and sends in monsters to capture Zelda. Meanwhile, Facade is still busy gloating, and just as he and Zelda are about to kiss, monsters interrupt them, which I am extremely happy about. And they manage to kidnap Zelda, and Facade follows suit. Link hears her screams and decides to go help her. Azora has Zelda in its grasp and makes its way across a swamp, which stops Facade in his tracks, and just leaves Zelda to be taken, claiming that heroes just don't get dirty. And Zelda finally snaps at him and calls him useless. Finally. And just as Zelda is about to be taken to Ganon, Link shows up and hops into the water and tells Zora to stop. But for some reason, Zora in the show are called Zola? Maybe this just was a translation error? I don't know, but anyway, Link destroys Zora, or I guess Zola, and Zelda kind of thanks Link, and the two get out. Facade says he's so thankful that Zelda is okay, and says he would have done it himself, but he didn't want to get himself dirty. And Zelda shouts at him, pushing him into the swamp anyway, and he gets all dirty. He even drops the rupee from earlier, which Link gleefully picks up, and he even tries to get Zelda to kiss him, but of course he's got no luck. Honestly, I really enjoyed this episode. It finally makes us empathize, or sympathize depending on who you are, with Link and makes Prince Facade very hateable, and everyone loves to hate on a douchebag. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good, but now we finally get into the ones that I truly feel are the best of the best the show has to offer. So let's talk about the top 3. So yeah, that was every episode of the Zelda TV show, and it was probably the most exhausting video I've created so far. Watching each of these episodes multiple times to write the script numbed my brain, and I hope to never touch it ever again. If you notice that each segment of this video kept getting shorter and shorter, It's because I was getting burned out after watching this show so many times. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this lengthy video ranking each episode. And don't forget to subscribe on your way out if you want more weekly Zelda content. And thank you all for watching.
Nice job, hero.
Hey, excuse me, princess.